Listen, right now you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.
What a religious upbringing did your father give you?
Oh, we were Swiss Reformed.
And did he make you attend church regularly?
Oh, well, that was quite natural.
Yes.
Everybody went to church on
Yes.
Sunday.
And did you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Do you now believe in God?
Now? Difficult to answer. I know. I don't need to believe. I know.
Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's Jean Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Thursday, June 27th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free, my friends. And I can't believe that June is almost over. It's unbelievable. This year's just racing. We wanted to welcome everybody, of course, on X, on Rumble, on YouTube, in the live chat. It's wonderful to see you. Gabriella is here. Hey, my friend. Jay Frage is here. Heidi is here. Yakshits. That's for sure. Sounds like Austria, doesn't it? Hey, Heidi, wie geht's? Then we have Amy is here. Reese is here. Gerald, good to see you. Franklin, Kentucky, representing. The Shaman from Within. Hello there. Cypher 9. Rob from Michigan. Hey to see you, my friend. Charlotte. Andrea T. Pedro. Divinia's King. Also been with us for a very, very long time. Good to see you. Where's Wendy? Mama May. Girl Sees Dragons. Good to see you. Sean Lindsay and everybody else. Tom, Arkansas in the house. Good to see you all. Thank you again for tuning in and being with us. I just want to make sure audio is good. Yep, we're all set. So, you know, part of the joy of doing what we do daily is that we get to hear from you all, and we get to get your messages, your comments, your emails, the live chat. And after every show, I do go and I read all your live chat comments. By the way, I tend not to do it during the show because you know, I kind of have to get that download through, and then I can go through the comments. But today we wanted to do a live Q&A. We live in absolutely unprecedented times in terms of, not all aspects are unprecedented, but the sheer culmination of all these developments that we're individually going through and collectively, I think, are quite unprecedented. And sometimes such a public Q&A helps people see certain things, see that others are asking themselves similar questions. Others are thinking about similar things. And it gives me an opportunity to have a real two-way communication with you guys. So that's why we're here. Thank you for tuning in. And Christine's in the live chat, and she's going to intuitively pick those comments or questions, and we're just going to try to get us through as many as possible. So the first one is here, and just to get everything perfectly right, so many people. David Icke, for one. That's by Charlotte Woods, and Charlotte's I don't think she's here anymore, or she is. So many people, David Icke for one, say that if we get on a high enough vibration, we don't have to go through the white light process. However, I don't think they say where to go. So I think this refers to when we transition, right, Charlotte? And if this is not what you were referring to, please let me know. But this question has come up a lot. Is in the native traditions and in other indigenous traditions, when you study them, when you go deep enough, you might have heard, don't go into the light when you pass on, or at least don't go into the first light. So the question was, if we raise our vibration high enough, do we have to go through this entire thing? I think that the answer to such a question is usually kind of self-evident. Um, it's like, for me, it's almost like, and I don't mean to in any way, shape, or form um, put that answer down in any way. But when I was I don't know, 14, 15. Um, I remember asking someone who was older than me, more experienced. I said, "How do you know if you're in love?" And a lot of people have asked that question, and the answer I got is, "Well, if you got to ask, you don't know." And I think we are asking ourselves these questions, me included, by the way, because it helps us to elevate our journey. And whenever we ask a question sincerely, I believe a path is beginning to open, so we can experience, not just mentally receive, but experience the answer. So I think the answer is in the question. If we do walk that path and raise our own consciousness to the best of our abilities every day, those answers appear in our path as, at least for me, they appear as certainties. So I can't say that I have a clear answer that everyone can simply follow. What I will say is that if you follow your path and your inner guidance on these things, that these answers will appear in a way so that there's no more doubt about them. And this one especially, if you were particularly, if that's how I read your question, asking about when we go out of the body and people talk about the light when we die, quote unquote, die, and we see that light, and everybody that came back from NDEs, they'll tell, "Oh, it was just so beautiful, and all my relative or my dad or my grandfather, somebody picked me up, and then I had these beautiful experiences." And it was suggested that this is part of the matrix and part of the simulation. And I have said on occasion that I tend to believe that. However, I don't think we can mentally make up our minds about it. I think we have to go within. We have to go into prayer, meditation, introspection, and discover these realms for ourselves. So that's going to be my answer on that. And thank you for a great question. Is the awakening global or just mainly centered on the West? This is a wonderful question. Where's Wendy? Thank you so much, because it's something that I've asked myself, and I've kind of looked uh into places that I have a little bit of insight in, or that where there's at least reporting on it. And of course, my personal experience and the most knowledge I have is on what is happening in Europe. That's what I know firsthand. What is happening here, that's what I know firsthand. But if I look at our audience, where people are tuning in from, and we have in our YouTube analytics, that's the backside of YouTube. You can kind of look at where people are tuning in from. We have viewers in almost every country of the world, and people commenting oftentimes from almost every country in the world. If not that, at least from every continent. So that tells me that there is a spark in people all over the place that hasn't doesn't have necessarily to do with our current political or cultural development in the West. I think it is because it's spiritually driven, because I think it's what you could equate to the truth vibrations. Also the age that we're in terms of if you look at, let's say, astrology, right? Whatever you believe about it, or whatever your thoughts on it are, but it pretty often accurately shows what kind of period we're in. Is it a period with great conflict, Or is it a period of great revelation? Is it a period of great forgiveness? So, looking at all these factors and looking at the kind of creations that come from all over the world, and our creations, by that I mean everything from books to movies to documentaries to music, arts, anything. Our creations inform us really well about our state of consciousness. I think that's how we look at something we create, and we learn more about ourselves from our creations. So if I look at all the creations that come from all over the world, I would say that this is most definitely a worldwide movement. And here's the kicker: I think it transcends Earth. I think it's something that probably has its ripple effects into other spheres. So yeah, thank you. Great question. What is Agenda 2030? From Allie So Bradley, or Sue Bradley. I don't know, but So Bradley. This is a good one. Well, let's say you are in some respects as nerdy as I am, as geeky as I am, and then you spend months of your life sifting through documents that are released by the various agencies out there. Let's just start with the UN, okay? Because this term is derived from the United Nations. And the United Nations is an incredibly powerful organization with a million little sub-organizations that it's literally being run like a unofficial world government. It has its intelligence apparatus, it has its own police, secret police. It has everything. It's incredible, and people don't know this. They kind of know the big ones. They know the World Health Organization, UNESCO, and those kinds of organizations. And they think, oh, they're just doing good. But the UN, uh, the United Nations, was really established to be the vehicle to transport the new world order, if you will, this one world agenda. So the Agenda 2030 used to be the Agenda 2000, and then it was the Agenda 21, and then it turned into the Agenda 2030. However, they stopped there. So by 2030, the wannabe elites, and it's not just the UN, but the UN is a main vehicle that sort of pushes this out to all the other sub vehicles. But the wannabe world elites by 2030 want to have transformed all major aspects of our society into a fully digital world, for one, into a world where a lot of our current practices are a thing of the past. So they wanted to ban fuel. And I don't call it fossil fuel because it's not fossil fuel, but they wanted to basically ban the commercial use of oil and gas and diesel and whatnot. But to go even higher up, it is a system that has full 24/7 surveillance and control over the remaining population, because the population is to be reduced. The numbers vary from, on a low end, 500 million to, on a high end, maybe 1.52 billion. And it seeks to the Agenda 2030 to have of course, digital currencies, digital ID, digital health passports, a social credit system, and people living, the vast, vast, vast majority, 99 point something percent of the people living in concentrated urban areas, 15-minute cities that are fully digital, and you check in with your chip, with your phone. And agriculture is a thing of the past, agriculture as we know it in the Agenda 2030. Nature is restricted area for the most part. Agriculture is fully digitized too, and in the hands of maybe 2 3 large producers. So private agriculture, even backyard gardening, chicken coops, all of that is supposed to go away under this agenda. Natural health products are too. There's a big push to and it's gone through in many countries, to eliminate natural healing, holistic healing, all the traditions, and basically have mandated allopathic healing only. So the current medicine system, um, from a government standpoint, it is supposed to be an AI centric technocracy. So basically, in the first stage, it might not be full on AI. It will be just expert governments. So every government, every sub government, there's a world government, but everything is run by experts, right? Like expert scientists, like you saw basically during the COVID era. Officially, the health experts took over. Fauci was the president, right? Officially, kind of people looked at him that way. So all of this is supposed to be codified and restructured. So we have an AI centric world government, and then we have zones rather than nations. Nation states are supposed to be eliminated in borders, and then we have zones that are sort of the Hunger Games zones. So this is the Agenda 2030. Um, if you really read through everything, and if you read between the lines, that's what's supposed to happen. The last piece that I didn't fully mention is that our participation in this system will most likely depend on our willingness to fully accept technology into our bodies. So these are sort of the major points and important. Um, the all current religions are supposed to merge into one, or be eliminated, if you will, and one true religion will be presented to the people, one true belief system, most likely, the Luciferian one. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the Agenda 2030. Thank you. Uh, Aki Boss. Pardon me? How much do you believe of what we see playing out is the completion of a cosmological cycle, and the elites are denying us our chance to embrace the shift in our true mortality or immortality? It's a very good question. Let's start with how much of what I see I believe, just in general. The world is most definitely a stage, and I think we don't appreciate on a daily level just how true that is. So that the one layer is that systems upon systems upon systems upon systems, all of them false, have been stacked on top of each other for a very, 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 very long time. So we have been, if you want to call it a cosmological cycle, that's my opinion. We've been on this path of deception for thousands of years, where we were walking away from the truth, and maybe every now and then we had a period that was more enlightened, and then something happened or was being done to us, so it would put us back. But generally speaking, I think we've been walking from truth for quite some time. Now we're walking towards truth. So in the highest sense, I never doubted that uh, truth is going to prevail, and that what is real is going to prevail over what is false. But here's the thing: my hope is that we're talking about years and decades. But there's a possibility that we're not, and that these are much, much bigger cycles that are to unfold, and that this is going to take much longer. So, but ultimately, all signs and all developments point towards the fact that we are in this truth vibrations, um, have entered that. And I don't see it, I don't think they can stop that for longer periods of time. It will just become, there will be more conflict to stop it. There will be more violence, maybe, to stop it, and more means that they will try to use. But with everything that they, being dark forces or forces that are inverted, with everything that they use, they lose a lot of their power because it helps people see it. It helps people awaken to it. Thank you, Laura. We'll get to this. Thank you so much. So, these elites, yes, they try to deny us everything, but one thing that supersedes, at least so far, supersedes everything, is our connection with spirit when we go there. And even though they attack our bodies, even though they use technology to manipulate us, there seems to be an almost invincible strength coming from the connection with spirit. And that's why this is always on the top of my list of important things. That's the first thing. Everything else comes after that. So yeah, they're trying, they will use every tool at their disposal. Uh, but the truth and spirit will prevail. I can't tell you when, how long it'll take, but that's the one thing I do know for sure. Cheryl, do you think things will turn for the better? I think things are turning for the better. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about inflation is getting worse. Don't get me wrong. And the culture, the the cultural rape. Okay, I want to get this right. So basically, forcing cultural shifts down people's throats and mandating belief systems. Yes, that's always been the case. Now it's more open, now it's more aggressive, now it's more visible. So, because we are living in the age of truth, or the beginning of the age of truth, we see those things that were always there, but now they're becoming visible. So, that to me is an improvement. To see something that we couldn't see before, even if it's disturbing or ugly, but to be able to see it is a huge, huge improvement in my book. And I know people just want to rush through this, but things are getting better. When more and more people talk about certain things and begin seeing the truth in a bigger sense, and nothing happens overnight, by the way, but they begin that, then for me, that's an improvement. When more people have greater capacity for compassion and union and collaboration and seek to unify people more, that is huge improvement. And when they're not willing to sacrifice the truth in the process, that's even better. So I think we see a lot of betterment. And just the fact that you all are here and that we're here and that similar things are being done in other realms and other podcasts and shows and books and gatherings and communities. There's a lot happening that we didn't think was possible 15 years ago, or we couldn't imagine, right? I mean, 15 years ago, we sort of, we plateaued reaching a certain group of people, but not beyond. And so we've been in this for so long now that I can tell you things have gotten exponentially better on the awakening side. And hence the reaction to that from those who don't wish us to experience this is getting stronger too. So that's just something we have to live with, this polarity for now until we get through this. The more we connect with spirit, once again, the better it is, and the easier it is. Great question. Thank you. Laura Diamond Wise, thank you for your contribution, by the way. Laura asks, Jean, what is your opinion about telepathic communication? The Cabal has done everything to keep us from being able to gather in person or online, but they can't regulate our minds. As a matter of fact, Laura, let me just play the devil's advocate here. Great question. Yes, they can, and they're trying to, and they're literally, in many ways, they are succeeding with that. And this is why I will get once again to this most important thing. If becoming and being connected to spirit, to that consciousness that created everything, is the most important thing in your life, then that drives everything else. So that is like, it's like you live in a state of healing when you do that. And when you live in a state of healing, you become much stronger. And when you become stronger, you can fend off all these attacks much more. I believe, no, I know that telepathic communication is how most of the natural sphere communicates. It's how we were meant to communicate and what we can still do. So one thing is, and this is fun to practice with someone you're maybe close to, your spouse, sibling, or children when they're a little older, is that you practice this by asking them to hold something in their mind, to focus on something. And all you agree on that it's not, it's not something that is so obvious. So let's say Christine and I practice this, and I go, okay, think of something and just hold that visual in your mind. And she'll pick something like, I don't know, a blue horse, something that's a little out of the ordinary. And if I tune in, actually very quickly. If I tune in, I can see it. Then the question is, do I trust it, right? Do I trust myself on that? And we've done that often, and it's amazing how accurate you get. Now it is sometimes we will say we'll be quiet for 30 minutes, sit on opposite sides of the room, and when we start talking, it's at the same time, and what we want to share is the same thought, although it had nothing to do with the previous conversation. So we all have that. We all know that when we're connected to someone, but with strangers, I've experienced this in meditation, communication with strangers. It's something we need to practice like everything else. It's easy to understand um, in the mental knowing of something, but then embodying it, it's a whole different thing. So that's just practice, right? And are we willing to do that? I believe we are telepathically communicating, because one of the most common things that I hear from you all is, I can't believe how synchronized we are, because I just watched your show and you were talking about the exact thing that I was thinking about this morning. This is such a common comment these days. So we are telepathically connected. I just don't think we're doing it as consciously as we could. So practice, I would say, is the key. Girl sees dragon. Jean and Christine, do you believe what I see in the sky, dragons, angels, other dimensions, are part of the good guys? Does David Icke or Frank Jacob know about the other dimensions and dragons? Thank you, by the way, for your persistence on this Girl Sees Dragons. So um, I think you're obviously guided to do something, explore something, and have a level of obsession, which is necessary, by the way. I think I say this in a good way, because I know what that feels like. You have a level of obsession with the subject, and it has entered your sphere for a reason. So I don't know whether David or Frank are aware of what you're talking about. I do know that as omnidimensional beings, they don't have a problem knowing about other dimensions. But this particular subject, I think it's you. So I think it's wonderful that you walk that path, that you try to look at it from all angles, that you're following that guidance that you have. And I really, really look forward to everything that's coming from that. And to the moment when this becomes something that will be more accessible to even more people. So, uh, you know, th- I love it when someone finds something that is so important to them, and then they dedicate themselves to it. Uh, I really applaud you for that. And I'm here watching. And when this will enter my sphere, our sphere, which it simply hasn't yet, right? But it will, I assume, when the time comes. Then let's see what happens then. But just tip my hat to you, because this requires a lot of work and intensity and attention. So thank you. Stephen Walker. Is Julian Assange a white hat, and is his release going to kick off a string of events that we've been waiting for so long? More disclosure, awakening of the normies. Thank you, Stephen. Um, you know, you might have heard me kind of talk a little bit about this whole white hat theory, and I'll give you I'll give you just, this is just a little funny anecdote, but I got so tired of hearing about white hats that I decided that I'm not gonna hide. I put on my white cowboy hat, because I thought, what's this game about? We're in a stage where all these secret operations, and yes, I understand there is a certain necessity for that on certain levels. Don't get me wrong, but I think it would be so much easier if people came forward and stepped up, and if they just said, this is what we're doing, this is what we stand for. I think so many people would actually join them. So that's the whole white hat thing. I think we've been hoodwinked, or a lot of people have been hoodwinked in many ways. and that some things were really, really a good PR campaign. Some things were probably true too. As for Julian Assange, I look at his work. It's like, when I look at people like him, when I look at people like David Icke, I just look at the body of work that's out there. How was the world changed through his activism? And what do we know today that we didn't know before? And what an impact has it had on us? So those are the questions I ask myself, because then I can assess it better. I don't know. Obviously he's made some deals. From what I heard, the DNC directory was deleted from the WikiLeaks files, but it's out there. Millions of people have copies. But I don't know who he plays for, if he plays for anyone. I know for a fact, for example, that David Icke plays for no one than for creation and truth. And that's sort of the feeling that I've always had about Julian Assange. But again, the body of work speaks for itself. What we have learned through WikiLeaks has changed the world dramatically. It has changed the face of journalism. It has changed the face of the alternative media. So this is what I go on. And every day, in every way, what is happening is awakening the normies to the extent that they can awaken. Certain people simply cannot, and they will not. There's a good group of people. There's a good sized group of people that can't. They will just follow whatever becomes the strongest force. So if the good people become the strongest force, they'll follow them. But they have no capacity, and we could talk about why they don't have that capacity, but that's just the truth. So thank you for that question. I am Sophia. Do you believe Jason Bashir's prediction of worldwide Phoenix cataclysm in the year 2040 is inevitable, or will consciousness change it? So before I go to talk about what Jason says and what I think about that, I'll tell you that these cataclysms, these reset cataclysms, were not new to me or to us when we were introduced to Jason's work. These cataclysms were sort of something that became more and more people became aware of. I think when we talk about the rhythms, that's where it gets more specific. But sort of what we have learned is that in the eons, I don't know how long, but eons, there was a pattern of humanity or society reaching certain levels of enlightenment, wisdom, knowledge, and then either they destroyed themselves or destroyed their civilization, or a cataclysm, which people call a natural event. The idea about this time period, and maybe that was the idea every other time period too, is can we create a fundamental shift without another cataclysm? And is consciousness able to affect that? I think consciousness is able to affect anything. Consciousness is what everything is not just made of, it's what everything is. So consciousness naturally has to be able to affect everything. So to look at something as being inevitable has never been my view. I think there are certain things, short-term developments, that gain so much momentum that their unfolding is inevitable, but not in the big scheme of things. In the big scheme of things, nothing is inevitable. So that's the first thing. The second thing, um, you know, I, I really don't think there has been anything substantial so far that could challenge the cycles that Jason has found. Jason Bashir's. I've not seen it. Believing is really not something I want to talk about in this context. It's really all data driven, and I haven't done a tiny speck of his research on the subject. I mean, he's done 30 years, 25 years on this, so I can't pretend that I can talk with any authority on it. But from what I have seen so far, there seems to be a lot of accuracy in these cycles, and so the question is, what would a beautiful, wonderful, transformational, positive reset look like? I think that's what we should ask. And could we turn something that is a cataclysm into something that is wonderful? You know, that's how I see it. The shaman from within. John, have you noticed that the ability to look and listen has been lost? It's an interesting question. So there's a doctor, and I forget, Dr. Nail, I believe. I forget his name. Um, and he has, and I'm gonna go about it physiologically because he has extensively studied the hippocampus. The hippocampus is this part of our brain that compares our experiences, analyzes them, compares them to past experiences, and sort of categorizes things and puts them in perspective and context and whatnot. And so he has found that the hippocampus activity has gone down. It's actually shrinking and has gone down significantly in the last years, which means that there's many ways or many reasons for it. And I believe we have to understand that a lot of things play into that. But it's sort of this also very short attention span. But we are what he's saying is without proper hippocampus activity, we're basically just absorbing things without analyzing them, without critically looking at them, thinking about them, putting them in the proper context. And so just think about if people watch 1,000 little reels and shorts and whatnot every day, which a lot of people do, there's no analytical thinking. You would have to actually stop and take a moment like it used to be, right? Because everything wasn't as fast. So you'd have to stop and take the time, come to a conclusion, contextualize things. And a lot of people have lost that ability completely. Uh, you're right. So from a physiological standpoint, from the attack on our brains and our bodies, yes, I mean people have lost the ability to look and listen properly, and what that really means. Um, from a another standpoint is also that people are addicted to external information sources. So they tend to, and the irony is not lost on me that I come here 5, 6 times a week and we talk about certain things. But if you spend your days just sourcing information from other people and their interpretations and their belief systems, and then you go to sleep, when is the time when you walk with something, think about it, pray on it, meditate, maybe gather more information, maybe tap into source, maybe tap into the field of all information? I think that's very, very, very important, because it's so fast that we just lose sight of these things. And so I think it's very important to slow down our intake and sit and walk with things for longer periods of time and really become critical thinkers again. I think that's very important. So thanks for your question. No worries. Um, so Charlotte says, this awakening was so sudden. Why or how do you think it happened? That lies in the eye of the beholder. So we have gone, and I'm here, I can speak for Christine and myself because we've gone through it together and our individual experience matched very much. But we've gone through a longer and to a certain degree very painful and complex awakening period. And we were both never fully programmed into the system to begin with, so it was easier. But that was some 15, 20 years ago, really. So um, a lot of the things that people are experiencing today, we've had those experiences some time ago. So for us, it wasn't a sudden thing. It was a gradual thing. However, the vibration, the consciousness of Earth and of the people has shifted so much that now you're sort of correct. For a lot of people, it's almost instantaneous, and it is quite remarkable for us to watch that, because a lot of people are able to grasp concepts in a matter of days or weeks, which took us and other people months and years to really be, partially, of course, because there wasn't as much data. So you couldn't find answers to questions. You had to find them within, or sort of dig yourself. Yeah, that's part of it. But I think these truth vibrations, and I think the general level of consciousness has risen. So higher vibration, everything's faster, everything is more open to people. So I think it is the times that we're in and the vibration that we're in that allows people to grasp things much, much faster. And that's on our side, by the way. That's really, I think that's really wonderful that that's happening. And I've been amazed, and Christina and I have been amazed at some of the leaps, the quantum leaps that people are making. So great question, and I'm glad it's that way. Trudy, Trudy says, um, and thank you. I want to say, Aki, thank you for your generous contribution up there. I just seen this. Trudy says, "Flat Earth Dave is fun to listen to." What do you think? We had him on, Trudy. You know, we had him on a couple of times. Um, yeah, this is one of those. You know, there are some subjects that seem to divide the internet. So I think Dave is fun to listen to. I think he's passionate. He created a great app. I've had conversations with him off camera. I like the guy. He's funny and you know, full of excitement. So that's the last time I talked to him. That's about Dave. Nothing bad whatsoever to say about Dave. Um, the other thing is, which this question sort of kind of points to, is, you know, is this a globe? Is this flat Earth? Is there a dome? Is it another shape? Are we moving? Is it stagnant? Is, you know, the truth of the answer is I don't know. I don't know. Um, I've sat on the beach many nights, on remote beaches that are far away from light pollution, with my wife, who sat there quietly staring into the stars. And so when you watch the stars and what is happening, and you're sort of you're just observing that one star up there, and then you think, oh wait, so we're rotating at a tremendous speed, and then we're also racing through space at a tremendous speed. None of what I can see, feel, taste, touch, or smell makes me notice any of it. So I don't know. I haven't been out there. Um, if in fact this is, you know, really a simulation, or at least a semi-simulated reality, which I tend to think it is, then maybe what we're talking about is the shape of a computer program, right? So, hmm, prime Earth, is prime Earth the real thing, a planet? I tend to think so. Yes, I would tend to think so. But again, I, you know, anyone who says I know for a fact that hasn't been out of what we perceive to be the atmosphere, that hasn't broken through what maybe is the dome. Short of that, I really don't know, and you know, that's why I really don't talk about it much. Little things, CC. As conscious parents, as you both are, uh, how do we achieve balance, keeping children happy but not living under the blissful ignorance fog, or be afraid of the world collapsing around them? So that's a wonderful question and a very thoughtful one. And I can actually talk from personal experience, because our kids are older now; they're in their 20s. So for us, um, keeping them happy wasn't really part of the agenda, because they naturally were happy children, right? And I think all children are naturally happy. It's the conditions that they live under, the circumstances, the people around them, what, you know, that's what creates unhappiness in children. But when the truth is how you live, then those questions are sort of become a side note. Here's the thing. Would I discuss child sex trafficking with my 8-year-olds? No. No, I wouldn't. Because these are concepts that they couldn't possibly grasp, right? So when there is some direct connection because someone in their school or friendship circle, something happened, you can describe things differently and they were hurt. Somebody did something bad to them. That those are kind of the things. But in our household, we had uh, at least one major meal together every single day. That was really important to us. And we would discuss things very openly. However, we would make sure that the things that we talk about are appropriate, right? So some of the things, and this goes even more closer to home. I think a lot of people, for example, a lot of parents discuss their relationship stuff with their children. I think that's not right. That's none of children's business. Their financials, none of children's business. They shouldn't be a part of those discussions because they don't have the context and there's nothing they can do about it anyway. So there are certain things that you sort of keep where they need to be. But generally, our children, they saw the people that visited us at home were always weird people, compared to their friends. We always had weird people with long hair and singing bowls and authors that wrote books that got banned and whatnot. It was actually exciting, I think, in many ways. But for us, it was we lived the truth to the best of our abilities, right? So that was our directive. That was our intention. And that's what they saw. So as a parent, I always thought it isn't as important what I say is, but who I am and what I do, because that's what children follow. That's what I noticed is, nothing is more common than if you grew up in the 80s or whatnot, or earlier when parents said, smoking is really bad for you, son. You should never do it. Yeah. Well, guess who became a smoker? So I think this is really important. So our motto was that we lived with the truth, and that's what our children lived with. And common sense dictates that you won't talk about certain things with your children that they just can't comprehend yet. Thank you for that question. Is gazing real and safe to try? Beautiful question, Bella B. Yes and yes. So the short answer is yes. Sun gazing is very real. It is absolutely safe to try. However, here's what I would do. The softer gaze to begin with is going to be sunset. So if you want to start, I would pick the last, depending on where you live, of course, because if you live in the mountains, that's more difficult. But I would pick the last 15 minutes of the day and start with 10 seconds and add another 10 seconds every day. So you start with 10 and then the next 20 and then 30 and 40 and so forth. And then maybe when you're at 2-3 minutes of comfortable sunset gazing, you can try some sunrise gazing. And that's going to be more intense, right? So, and for sunrise gazing, I would also use the first minutes in the beginning. So generally, people have said that the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day are most appropriate. I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm not telling people to stare into the sun. It's all at your own risk. I've done it at other times, but those are definitely going to be good, safe times to do it, and the benefits are wonderful. As our old friend Joe used to say, after 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that was his experience, fear will leave you. It's very true. After when you get up to 10, 15 minutes, there are certain things that happen within you. There's a healing process that takes place. And part of it is that you lose fear. It's interesting. So gazing is very real, and I recommend it.
I think it was the last question.
That was the last question. Well, guys, thank you. I think your questions were wonderful. Loved your questions. Expansion and again, these are my perspectives, my experiences, and certainly also my opinions. So, I don't claim this is the gospel truth. So that's that. But I want to thank you for your very thoughtful and uh, beautiful questions. All right, my friends. Wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.